What if I told you that Edgar Allan Poe didn't just write about death and the macabre, but actually conversed directly with death itself, a supernatural entity that revealed to him the true nature of mortality and what lies beyond? What if the master of Gothic horror's final, unpublished manuscript contained transcripts of actual conversations with the personification of death? Prophecies so terrifying that they were immediately suppressed by academic institutions and hidden from humanity. This is the story of Poe's ultimate revelation, a supernatural confession so profound that it has been classified for over 170 years. October 6, 1849. Baltimore, Maryland. In a dingy room above Reynolds Tavern, Edgar Allan Poe lay in his final delirium, frantically scribbling words that seemed to flow from a source beyond his own tortured mind. But according to recently discovered correspondence from Dr. John Moran, the physician who attended Poe's death, the writer wasn't simply hallucinating. He was recording actual conversations with what he called the Dark Ambassador, a supernatural entity that claimed to be death incarnate. The story begins with a discovery that has sent shockwaves through both literary and paranormal research communities. In 2021, during renovation of the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore, workers uncovered a sealed vault containing manuscripts that had been hidden since the 1850s. Inside was what scholars now call the Thanatos manuscript, Poe's secret final work documenting his supernatural encounters with death personified. Dr. Margaret Whitman, a Poe scholar who was granted limited access to the manuscript before it was reclassified by the Smithsonian Institution, describes what she found. This wasn't typical Poe fiction. The manuscript was written as a series of interviews, with Poe asking direct questions to an entity he referred to as Death, or the Eternal Harvester. The responses were unlike anything in Poe's known writing style. They contained knowledge about consciousness, the afterlife, and human destiny that seemed to come from a genuinely otherworldly source. The Thanatos manuscript reveals that Poe's fascination with death and the supernatural began after a profound mystical experience in 1847, following the death of his beloved wife, Virginia. According to his secret writings, Poe claimed that Virginia's spirit had introduced him to the entity known as Death, who offered to share the ultimate secrets of mortality and existence beyond the grave. In his characteristic Gothic prose, Poe wrote, "Virginia came to me in the midnight hour, not as memory or dream, but as radiant spirit accompanied by a figure of terrible majesty. This being, cloaked in shadows yet emanating perfect understanding, spoke with a voice like the whisper of autumn leaves. Edgar, you who have written so eloquently of death, would you speak with death itself? Would you learn the truths that mortals fear to know?" Poe's conversations with death, as recorded in the manuscript, covered topics that wouldn't be explored by mainstream science for another century. The entity allegedly explained consciousness as eternal energy that transcends physical death, described multiple dimensions of existence beyond the material world, and revealed that human awareness was part of a cosmic consciousness that death served, rather than destroyed. "Death explained to me that mortals misunderstand its nature entirely," Poe wrote. "It is not the destroyer of life, but the liberator of consciousness. Death described itself as a gardener, harvesting souls when they have reached spiritual maturity, transplanting them to higher realms of existence where consciousness can flourish without the limitations of flesh." The most extraordinary aspect of Poe's supernatural interviews was Death's willingness to answer specific questions about the nature of existence, consciousness, and the afterlife. According to the manuscript, Death revealed that individual consciousness survives bodily death, but undergoes profound transformation, evolving through multiple stages of awareness that most human religions had only glimpsed. Death allegedly told Poe, "Consciousness is the fundamental force of the universe, more primary than matter or energy. When humans die, their awareness doesn't end. It expands. The personality, memories, and essential self persist, but freed from biological constraints, consciousness can perceive reality as it truly is, an infinite web of interconnected awareness, experiencing itself through countless forms." Dr. Robert Hayes, a consciousness researcher who has studied the leaked portions of the manuscript, believes that Poe's alleged conversations contain remarkably accurate descriptions of phenomena now being explored by quantum physics and near-death experience research. The entity describes consciousness as existing in quantum superposition, simultaneously individual and universal. This aligns perfectly with emerging theories about the quantum nature of awareness and the possibility of consciousness existing independently of the brain. Poe's interviews with death also included disturbing prophecies about humanity's spiritual evolution. According to the manuscript, death revealed that humans were approaching a critical transition point where the boundary between life and death would become increasingly permeable, allowing greater communication between the living and the deceased. Death spoke of a coming age when mortals would develop the ability to consciously communicate with the deceased, when the veil between worlds would thin until it became transparent, Poe wrote. It described this not as supernatural phenomenon, but as natural evolution of human consciousness, a species-wide awakening to the true nature of existence beyond physical form. The entity allegedly explained to Poe that certain individuals throughout history had served as bridges between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. These death mediums possessed natural abilities to perceive and communicate with consciousness that had transcended physical existence. Poe himself, death claimed, was one of these rare individuals. "You have been chosen not to fear death, but to understand it," death reportedly told Poe. "Your writings prepare humanity for truths they will soon need to comprehend. The stories you call fiction are shadows of reality, glimpses of the eternal drama that plays out between consciousness and its temporary physical vessels." Poe's manuscript includes detailed descriptions of what death called the transition process, the moment when consciousness separates from the physical body. According to these accounts, death is experienced not as ending, but as awakening, like emerging from a vivid dream into a more real and vibrant reality. Death described the moment of transition as the most beautiful experience consciousness can have, Poe wrote. "There is no pain, no fear, only a sense of coming home to one's true nature. The deceased often don't immediately realize they have died, because consciousness feels more alive, more aware, more capable than it ever did while confined to biological form." The most chilling aspect of Poe's conversations concerned his own approaching death. According to the manuscript, death had informed Poe that his time in physical form was nearly complete, and that he would soon join the realm of discarnate consciousness, where his true work would begin. "Death told me that my earthly writings were merely preparation for my eternal purpose," Poe recorded. "Once freed from flesh, I would serve as a guide for other artistic souls crossing from life to death, helping them understand that creativity doesn't end with physical existence but reaches its full potential in the realm of pure consciousness." The entity allegedly revealed to Poe specific details about his own death, including the date, location, and circumstances. Most disturbingly, death claimed that Poe's final days would involve a gradual separation of consciousness from his physical body, allowing him to exist simultaneously in both the world of the living and the realm of the dead. Dr. John Moran's suppressed medical notes, discovered alongside the Thanatos manuscript, corroborate some of Poe's claims. Moran wrote, "The patient exhibited extraordinary lucidity between periods of delirium. During these lucid moments, he spoke with remarkable clarity about subjects beyond his known education: quantum mechanics, consciousness theory, spiritual cosmology. Most disturbing, he accurately predicted several events that occurred after his death, including details about his own funeral arrangements that he could not have known." Poe's final conversation with death, recorded just hours before his physical demise, allegedly contained the entity's most profound revelations about the purpose of human existence and the destiny of consciousness. Death explained that physical life was a form of spiritual education, designed to develop qualities of love, creativity, and compassion that consciousness would need for its eternal journey. "Death revealed to me the ultimate secret," Poe wrote in his final entry. "Consciousness doesn't evolve through pleasure and comfort, but through struggle and suffering. Physical existence, with all its pain and limitation, serves as a refining fire that prepares souls for the infinite responsibilities of eternal awareness. Death isn't punishment for life's failures, but graduation from life's lessons." The official record states that Edgar Allan Poe died on October 7, 1849, under mysterious circumstances that have never been fully explained. But according to the Thanatos manuscript, Poe's death was neither mysterious nor tragic. It was a planned transition to a higher form of existence where his consciousness could continue its work of bridging the gap between life and death. Within days of Poe's death, reports began surfacing of supernatural phenomena connected to the writer. Publishers received manuscripts written in Poe's style, but containing knowledge that the living Poe couldn't have possessed. Mediums around the world claimed to be receiving communications from Poe's spirit, sharing insights about death and the afterlife that matched the themes of his secret manuscript. The most compelling evidence comes from documented seances conducted by famous medium Daniel Douglas Home in the 1850s. Home claimed that Poe's spirit communicated regularly through his sessions, providing detailed information about the transition to death and the continuation of consciousness beyond physical existence. These communications were witnessed by prominent figures including Napoleon III and were documented by multiple observers. Modern research into near-death experiences has begun to validate many of the phenomena described in Poe's manuscript. Thousands of people who have clinically died and been revived report experiences remarkably similar to what death allegedly described to Poe: encounters with beings of light, expanded consciousness, and a profound sense of coming home to a more real reality. Dr. Elizabeth Martinez, a researcher who studies consciousness and near-death experiences, believes that Poe may have experienced genuine contact with what she calls the consciousness that oversees transition between states of existence. Poe's descriptions of death and consciousness transformation align perfectly with accounts from people who have actually died and returned. His conversations with death may represent genuine contact with the intelligence that guides consciousness through the death process. The implications of Poe's revelations extend far beyond literature or paranormal research. If his conversations with death were genuine, they provide humanity with invaluable insights into the nature of consciousness, the reality of life after death, and the purpose of human existence itself. But perhaps the most profound aspect of Poe's final manuscript wasn't its supernatural content, but its message of hope and continuity. According to his conversations with death, physical death is not the end of the story but the beginning of consciousness's true adventure. An eternal journey of growth, learning, and creative expression unlimited by biological constraints. Poe's alleged final words, as recorded in the Thanatos manuscript, were a message of comfort for all who fear death. "Do not mourn my departure from flesh, for I have not departed but simply changed address. Consciousness is eternal. Love transcends all boundaries, and death is nothing more than birth into a larger life. The stories I wrote on earth were shadows. Now I go to experience the reality that casts those shadows." The truth about Edgar Allan Poe's supernatural conversations may never be fully known. The Thanatos manuscript remains classified, and scholars who claim to have studied it have been silenced through academic pressure and legal restrictions. But the questions Poe raised about death, consciousness, and the continuation of existence beyond physical life continue to inspire researchers and spiritual seekers around the world. Today, as science begins to explore the mysteries of consciousness and the possibility of survival after death, Poe's alleged conversations with death seem less like Gothic fiction and more like genuine revelations about the nature of existence itself. His vision of death as transformation rather than termination offers hope to all who struggle with the fear of mortality. What do you think? Could Edgar Allan Poe have truly communicated with death personified? Could his conversations provide genuine insights into the nature of consciousness and what awaits us beyond physical death? Are there truths about death and the afterlife that have been suppressed because they're too profound or disturbing for humanity to accept? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this revelation has changed how you think about death and consciousness, make sure to subscribe for more forbidden knowledge that was never meant to see the light of day.